Good morning. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for tuning in. So have you ever really messed up in life? I have. All sorts of different ways. We're going to talk about somebody from the Old Testament who really messed up. His name was Jacob. And he's one of the patriarchs. And he really screwed over his brother. I mean, Jacob steals his birthright. He trades him for it. But then he disguises himself so that his poor, blind, dying father gives him the blessing, which we can't even really understand today. But to get the blessing was to get the goods. And he didn't have to do it, but he did it. So then he has to live on the run. So he's out there, the fugitive, okay? We've all seen the movie. But he's out there, he's on the run. But then he feels like God's calling him back, and he does feel like God has made some changes in his life. And so then eventually he's meeting up with Esau, and he wrestles with God like the night before, and there's all these different things that happen. But as he's about to meet Esau, he's still afraid of Esau, because Esau is big and strong and has every right to be angry. And so he brings all these gifts and everything else, and he's just certain that Esau is just going to waylay him. But here's what happens, reading from Genesis chapter 33. But Esau ran to meet Jacob and embraced him. He threw his arms around his neck and kissed him, and they wept. And they wept. Then Esau looked up and saw the women and children. Who are these with you? They'd been gone for so long, he didn't know who his family was, and they had so much to catch up on. And Jacob answers, they are the children God has graciously given your servant. Now he's saying, I'm your servant. I'm humbling myself before you because I know that I wronged you. And he goes through this whole thing. But then Esau asked him, he said, what do you mean with all these droves I met? Because he sent all these gifts ahead of him. He said, to find favor in your eyes, my Lord. See, Jacob is calling his brother Lord. He's saying, I'm your servant. But Esau's saying, what's with all this stuff you're trying to give me? But Esau said, I already have plenty, my brother. Keep what you have for yourself. No, said Jacob, if I have found favor in your eyes, accept this gift. And here's the verse that I hope you take away from today. What is it like when you realize that somebody doesn't just forgive you, but they love you? What was it like for the prodigal son when he came home? He knew that he'd messed up. Okay, sometimes people are in denial. Sometimes people don't know that they've done something wrong. And sometimes people cover it up. But when people are open and honest and say, man, I was wrong, and that was the prodigal. You know the story. He comes home. His father runs out to greet him. Think about how the prodigal felt. The Bible tells us that the Father in heaven, it says there's rejoicing in the presence of the angels. Who's in the presence of the angels? It's the Father who's rejoicing when one sinner comes home. So how do you think the prodigal felt that day? How do you feel when you sense that God not only forgives you, but He genuinely loves you, He values you? And don't we wrestle with that? Sometimes we're like, okay, God, I get it, you forgive me, but you're not that happy with me. And God would say, don't you get it? I love you. Hear the words back to Jacob. He says, for to see your face is like seeing the face of God. Jacob has done so many things his own way. He's now wrestled with God, and he's moving in the right direction. He humbles himself. And to weep and to hug his brother, it was like seeing the face of God. I want to challenge you with two things. One, do you know that from God today? That God has forgiven you in that same way, that He wants to embrace you. He weeps over you with joy. And also, is there someone you need to forgive? They've come clean. They've acknowledged what they've done is wrong. It may not mean you have the same kind of relationship, but for you to extend grace to them from your heart, because Jesus has done to you, you will be like the face of God to them. I really believe that's for someone who hears this today. God bless you. Have a great week.